All right, we're back finally, and we just finished doing the exam. So for those people who weren't here for the exam, oh well, apologize. But what we're doing today is we're talking about a couple things. There's a new kit on the block. It's called Visual Studio Code, and it's offered up by Microsoft. So you can certainly download it. But let's talk about where you get it from if you don't know what it is. So some people just call it Code. That's the nickname, Visual Studio. If I go Visual Studio Code, it is a cross-platform editor you can download, right? I'd like you to try and download it for today. We did it in the first class. Some people may have already had it, but we're going to talk about how to set it up for TypeScript. All right. So the first thing with Visual Studio Code, when you set it up and you download it, for those people who don't have it, I'm just going to quit Visual Studio Code because I got it open, and I'm going to open it up again. I already have a project that I had running with it, another project that I was doing with Node.js and Express, but we're just going to close this project down and open up a new one. And the way to do that, the easiest way to do that, of course, is to have a kind of a file that we're going to use. We're going to have a new folder somewhere on the desktop. And we're going to title it today's lesson, which is going to be, we're on the road to building things for MailPilot, like I said. So let's just call this COMP397, and then it's going to be called MailPilot Demo for Fall 2015, right? Because we're going to have a few other things here. So that's kind of a longer, I got a big, folder name, COMP397, MailPilot Demo Fall 2015. Okay. I want you to take this folder and in Visual Studio Code, if you don't have something open, and there's a couple ways to do this. I can close, everything, right? So close my editor as an example. I can do that, and if you notice, you might see something like this, right? So all I have to do is grab COMP397 and drag it into your editor like this, in the editor space. Now what's going to happen is you've got a blank workspace here on the left, and what you have is if you hover over the toolbar, it says COMP397, and there's a couple of buttons here. There's the plus button for the file, there's a plus button for folder, there's refresh, and there's also collapse. Okay, so you should have this kind of working set right here. Okay, so now I've got control of my, for this one we're going to use our terminal window. Or if you're using a Windows machine, we're going to use command prompt. The fastest way to get to command prompt to look into this thing now with using Visual Studio Code, here's a shortcut. You right click anywhere in here and you just go to open in, and in your case it might be command prompt. Mine says terminal, open in terminal. And when you do that, it opens up the terminal window or the command prompt in the exact location of your file. So that's nice and easy. So you don't have to search around, where's my file, blah, blah, blah. Okay. We need a couple files to start this thing going, right? We're also going to share this on GitHub, right? So I like to do a couple things ahead of time before I go into GitHub. And the first thing is on the left-hand side, when we set up our first working folder, right, is I need to set up a couple of things for TypeScript. All right, so I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to go New File. And we're going to make something called a TypeScript TS config.json file, .json, right? So TypeScript config.json. Okay, now if you notice on my screen, there's nothing there, right? It's just TypeScript config.json, and there's nothing there. If I press Control space, it gives me a suggestion, which I'm going to accept with an enter. It's going to give me the compiler options, because you have to set up compiler options for TypeScript, because we're going to be using TypeScript in this example, right? So it has the target, which is ECMAScript 5. You can certainly choose ECMAScript 6 if you were going to compile for that. A lot of browsers don't understand ECMAScript 6 yet, although ECMAScript 6, although it's also called ECMAScript 2015, was released in June of 2015, or the end of June. But still, ES5, as is also known, is still the de facto standard. Module. CommonJS is the typical way we want to format our code. There's also AMD. Let's leave it at CommonJS. We'll put a comma here after CommonJS and go down and we'll type the word map. So if I say map, notice that I get a couple of, I get some IntelliSense. I get inline source map, map root, and source map. I want source maps. So I want to click source map. And instead of it being false, I want to make it true. What this is going to do is it's going to generate those source maps, those finicky source maps that most browsers want these days to reduce errors, right? So I'm going to kind of save that. Are you still with me? All right, so again, all we've done is created this tsconfig.json file. And the tsconfig.json file, what it's doing for us here is it's really mapping out, as an example, what, kind of everything that we need for our compiler options. Okay, next thing. The way we set up our compiling, on the Mac, it's Command-Shift-B. On Windows, if I'm not wrong, I think it's Control-Shift-B. So if you press Command or Control-Shift-B, I get this little window that says No Task Runner Configured. You got that? All right. Control-Shift-B, like I said. So if you click on Configure Task Runner, right, on the right, you're going to see that there's a little task runner that says the version number that you're running, the config's version number. You can actually have other ones. Is the shell command, which is true, and so on. There's different versions of this. For Windows, it's slightly different, right? But for most applications, just using TSC is enough. Get rid of the args, where it says args hello world.ts. Just get rid of that in here like this. So you have an empty args. And then save that. That takes care of your task runner, right? If I press Control-Shift-B again, it's going to try and find anything, if it's working for you, anything that has to do with TypeScript. It's going to find it. It's going to try and find it and compile it. Let's do a little test before we actually go into MailPilot, all right? So I want to show you some other things. And this is something that might be useful for us in the future, all right? So I want to have an index.html file. So let's do up here where it says on the actual folder, we're going to click New File, this little white icon with a plus on it. We're going to call it index.html. All right, so our index.html is nothing. It doesn't start off with anything. But what I'm going to do just to speed things up a little bit is I'm going to go into getbootstrap.com. So I'm going to say getbootstrap.com. And we're going to go into Getting Started on getbootstrap.com. Right, now you can choose any thing you want. I'm going to scroll down until I get to where it has kind of an example web page, right, like this basic template here. I'm going to grab this whole template. Or you can also click copy here on copy to clipboard. Right? And I'm going to go back into VS Code here, or code, and press paste. So I have a web page. Right? And I'm going to save. All right, so I got my web page, and again, to test this out, I can certainly go to the my folder, because all it is a web page, right? And here's something that you've never saw, you don't see every day, right? Of course, I put my index.html inside my VS Code folder. Sometimes that happens if you have VS Code selected. I'm just going to pull it out. Okay, now if I go back into here, there's my index.html page. If I double click this thing, I'm going to have a browser that comes up. Hello world, right? And you should have that. Okay, so I've got a basic browser and everything else. I want to start linking some stuff to my page, right? Because I got Bootstrap. I'll leave Bootstrap there. I'll get rid of some of these comments because they're a little bit annoying right now, right? And I'll get rid of some of this stuff here. It's just some of the comments, just so that way we can compress the view a little bit. I like these, the character set UTF-8 and the HTTP equiv, and also the name is equal to viewport. All that stuff is good. I want to change this thing here to MailPilot demo, so COMP397. So we're going to change this thing up, right? MailPilot demo for fall 2015, right? And then we're going to go back and download something else, right? I'm just doing this for now so you guys can see what we're doing and how to use the tool a little bit, and then we're going to get back into it later. All right, so we don't need this. We don't need this hello world, right? We need a canvas, right? Remember for Crate.js we need canvas elements. We're going to put a canvas in there, which we're going to give an ID of canvas, right? And we're also going to give it a width and a height. So width is equal to 640, and then height is equal to 480, some basics, right? And then just close off your canvas. Now one thing that Visual Studio Code has in it default built in. So all the encoding stuff, the shortcuts, all that stuff is in. I'm going to get rid of some of these comments for a second because I don't care about this right now. And I mean, I don't mind Bootstrap. I'm going to leave Jquery in there, sure, just for the way our page nicely looks and everything else. But really, I really don't need Jquery. All I need is create.js. So how do I get this stuff? How do I get create.js and easel.js now? So there's a couple ways. We can always go and download everything by hand. But I like to use a tool called Bower, right, which is kind of one of our ways of getting code without having it. Like right now we have our Jquery right here. I want to install Jquery, but I want it to be local to my folder, right? So we're going to do that. I'm going to pull up my terminal window. And in here, in my COMP397 mail pilot demo, right, I'm going to do one of these, and I want you to follow me here, right? I'm going to type, first of all, you have to install Bower on your system. You have to do one of these, npm install -g, right? And by the way, if you don't have Node, who does not have Node on their system? That would be the first step. Get Node on your system. Because if you don't have Node, then this makes a whole big thing. So where do you get Node.js? That's a bad thing. That's a requirement of this thing. In order for you to work with VS Code properly, you need Node, right? So let's get Node. So Node.js. You go get it from nodejs.org. Wow, they've moved up to 5. I can't believe it. They're moving quick, man. That's a new thing. They've just gone from 4 to 5, right? And it's Node has been really advancing a lot. It's amazing. So if you download the stable, not the 5 version, I wouldn't recommend that. I would go with the 4.2.1 LTS, the mature dependable version, what it says here. Grab that one for now, right? And download that. Now again, I don't need it for OS X because that's what I already have. Node. I'm not going to upgrade right now for this demo. This probably just came out recently too. It's really interesting. Okay, so once you have Node, it comes with something called npm, right? npm is the Node package manager. It's equivalent to NuGet for Visual Studio. Remember NuGet, we go in and install things for NuGet? Well, npm is the equivalent of that for Visual Studio. At one time, npm and Node was emerging technologies. I know that you did that in winter. I think one winter we did it together, right? Not anymore. Node and it's kind of become more of a mainstream thing now. And there's different pieces of Node, but we can run a very small server, a Node.js server on the back end. And what we can do with it is we can have it run our code as opposed to running something like an AMP stack, Apache, MySQL, PHP. You don't want to run MySQL and PHP. You can run Node. It's a very small server. And you can set that up with Azure. Microsoft Azure has a lot of Node. We're going to get into that, how we can use Azure for Node by setting up a VM and so on. And there's also DigitalOcean has some really cool Node services. You can build a little VM with DigitalOcean as well as Heroku for free. There's some free services you can load. For students, you get, because you have the GitHub pack for students, you can download your DreamSpark. Let me just go into DreamSpark for a second while you guys are downloading Node and npm. npm comes with Node, so you don't have to do anything special there. So if I go into my Centennial here, Centennial College Academic Software, my DreamSpark. Actually, let me go to Microsoft DreamSpark Software Catalog just one more time. The DreamSpark Software Catalog includes another tool that you can download. If you notice, there's the for all students, there's something called the GitHub Student Developer Pack, right? That I think I mentioned before, right? But it includes a free SSL certificate, 5 free GitHub repos. That's all the stuff we wanted before, right? Also a free name from Namecheap, domain name from Namecheap for a year, right? And you also get some, I think, 9 months free from DigitalOcean, right? So I think it's pretty cool if you want to try that out. If you didn't want to try that, and if you just want to have Azure, that's totally cool too. You can totally do Microsoft Azure, and that'll work right for you. But DigitalOcean and Heroku is the other one. I think those are the 3 that I would kind of recommend for now. They're places we can host our files that are Node.js compatible, right? Again, we don't have to run things within a Node.js framework at all. We don't have to do that. but I think it's kind of the newer way we're doing things, and it'd be cool from when we make our games. We want to make our games to the high score, right? And we want our high score to be persistent, and we can store that high score in something like a MongoDB server or something like that. We can do that. We also can store it online in Azure, somewhere else. Or we can also store it on the file system. There's different ways of doing it. File system obviously would be the easiest, right? But if you want to make your game that's cross-platform, and you want to make your game so it's like mobile ready and everything else, Node is a really good way to serve that up. Okay, so we're back to Node. Everyone's got Node? You should have already downloaded Node when I was talking and orating there. Okay, so we're going to use npm, the Node package manager, to install. That's how we install packages with Node, right? So we're going to go back to the command line, and I'm going to do this operation here. npm install, and if you have a Mac, you may have to do sudo npm because Macs have additional security in place. For a Windows machine, you don't have to do that. You can also, to avoid this, if you have a Mac, you can also use another way to install. You can use homebrew to install npm and Node, as opposed to doing it through the website. All right, but for now, you can just do npm install -g, and what the -g switch does is installs npm in the global namespace. So it'll actually be installed for everything, or it'll install. Sorry, you want to install Bower. That's the tool we want to install. It'll install Bower in the main namespace here. Taking off, Jason? Okay, thank you. No problem. I'll continue recording and you'll have all this. So Bower is the tool we want to use, yeah. If you have installed Node, first you have to install Node. You can certainly use git bash, would be helpful, because PowerShell is a little bit nicer than command prompt. But Bower will help us install stuff. All right, so I'm going to just show you what it looks like. So I'm going to do the same command. By the way, even if you have a module, you can always reinstall a module, and it'll just give you the most recent one. Here's an example of that. So I'm just going to press Enter, and it's going to go through and install Bower globally, so that it's available to any of my projects, right? What Bower does is it goes and fetches, right? Fetches your code or any JavaScript files you need for you, but instead of it being put in a script file, right, in their scripts folder, it has its own place that Bower puts stuff. It puts something inside a folder called Bower Components, right? So in order for us to kick that off and to make it work properly, you need to do one of these. You need to say, as long as Bower is installed, you use the Bower command, so Bower init, and then press Enter. When you do that, it'll ask you for the name of your project. So, and it'll take the folder name as a default of your project name. So COMP397 mailpile demo fall 2015. Press Enter. Then it'll ask you for a description. You can certainly put down demo project for COMP397, whatever. Your main file, if you have one. I'm not going to put one in there. And it says what type of modules does this package expose? AMD ES6, globals, Node, or UI. Let's leave that as the default AMD, even though we're not. Keywords, you can put keywords in there, and an author, if it recognizes who you are, especially if you're using a Mac, it'll recognize your name. And then the type of license, your home page, if any, and set currently installed components as dependencies, you put yes. And add commonly ignored files, you put yes. And then would you like to mark this package as private? You leave it as blank. And then does everything look good? Yes. What it does is it includes, once you go through this little wizard, it has another file, see another JSON file. Got a couple of them now, right? The bower.json file kind of is a manifest for your project when it comes to stuff we download. It's like the package.json file for Node, right? We're not going to use Node in this project, right? But here's what it does. It kind of tells us we really don't have any dependencies at this time, right? But it does tell us this. It's going to ignore Node modules, if we have any of that, anything that's called the Bower components, test or test. That's what it's going to ignore. That's fine. Let's add a dependency, right? So we're going to save this. I'm going to go back to terminal, and I'm going to clear a screen. And I'm going to add a dependency. I'm going to add Jquery, because remember, I want to add Jquery and Bootstrap, right? So how do I do that? I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to say Bower install Jquery --save. The -- save switch modifies my bower.json file and adds jQuery as a dependency. That's what it does, right? So it adds jQuery as a dependency so that it downloads the most recent version of jQuery. Now here's why this is really good. I don't have to include my JavaScript libraries when I upload to GitHub. I can avoid doing, can you not see this? Is it too small?
No, I already hit enter.
All right.
Git is not installed or not in the path.
Git? I don't know. I'm not doing anything with Git. Right? So I say bower install jQuery -- save, and I press enter. And when I do that, what it does is it grabs stuff from Git. You need Git installed, obviously, for bower. And then what it does is it pulls down jQuery, right? It installs jQuery 2.1.4. Take a look. And it puts it inside the components, bower components folder, right away for us. So here's bower components. Underneath that, it's the full-blown version of jQuery. If I go to source, it has all the files, or the distribution. It has jQuery.js, the jQuery.min.js, the minified version, which looks like this, and also the map, which is important to have. All right, so that's what it does. So let's go back to my index. So now that I have that, I can link to it instead of linking to the CDN, the Content Delivery Network online. I don't have to link to it here like that anymore. I can point to the bower installation, right? By basically just doing something like this, by going, my path is bower components, and then /jQuery /dist /jQuery. I gotta look at the version number, jQuery.min.js. There we go. jQuery.min.js. And what this does is it gets the latest version of jQuery in there. Let's do one more. Let's do one for Bootstrap. So I'll say these are JavaScript libraries. Now this isn't game, but it's what we're doing here is version please call. What we're doing is, I'm just going to save this thing, is we're installing Bower. We're using Bower as our dependency manager for our JavaScript libraries. Okay. Let's do one more for Bootstrap, and then I'll call my wife because she's nervous. All right, so we'll do Bootstrap. So we'll do the same thing. So we'll say Bower install, right, and we'll say Bootstrap. Let's see if we can find it, and then -- save, and press enter. So it's going to go out to the network, try and find a match for Bootstrap, which it does. It'll drag it down with all of its dependencies, right, and install it alongside with jQuery, right, inside the Bower components folder. So if you notice now we have Bootstrap right here, and we have our distribution right here, and under JS we have our bootstrap.min.js, right? So we can actually put that in there as well. So we can do one of these. We can say, instead of this, we can say Bower _ components / as an example dist, bootstrap / dist / JS. By the way, there's a faster way of doing this. And then bootstrap.min.js. All right, so now we've got our Bootstrap, and we're just showing you this so, because I want to show you how it works, right? Okay, and then now we've got, these are nice, right? This is all beautiful and fantastic. But now I want to make it so that I have a file somewhere where I have my TypeScript, right? So I want to show you TypeScript. This is what this whole thing's around, right? All right, so let's do the next piece. So I'm going to add a new folder. So I'm going to go to the folder, my project folder, and click folder, new folder. And we're going to add a new folder in here. Now, unfortunately, it's trying to add it into the wrong place. Right, so make sure you're clicked out of everything and somewhere over here. And we're going to put a new folder in here. We're going to call, scripts. It's going to still be the place where we keep all of our scripts, right? And inside scripts, I'm going to add a new file, right? Here's our new file. And we're going to put in there, we're going to call it game.ts, right? Game.ts. Okay, cool. So there's our game.ts file, and we want to access jQuery. Yeah.
We cannot download we can't install jQuery.
Okay, I'll come over and help you when we take a break in a second. Okay, so here's my game.ts file, right? as an example, and I want to open that up. So I want to kind of look at that. And did I make that a folder? I did. Let's just get rid of that. Sorry. I meant to make it a file, not a folder. Game.ts. All right, so here's my TypeScript folder. So it shows you that there's a folder here, and I want to access Jquery and Bootstrap, right? But I want to use TypeScript, right? So because I want to make those, I need those type definition libraries, which is what TypeScript is all about, right? How do I get them? Well, there's another npm module you can download, right? Called TSD. So it's like npm install -g TSD. So TS as in Sam D, right? And what this does is it installs the latest version of the TypeScript definition library tool that's linked to definitely typed. All right, so I'm going to do that. You can kind of enter that. By the way, you also have to have TypeScript installed on your system for all this to work. Okay, because if you don't have TypeScript installed, that would be bad. And the way to install TypeScript is to do the same thing. Like if I was to go to the TypeScript library here, so I go to typescriptlang.org, and if I go to download, you notice that there's this npm I, that's just install, npm install -g TypeScript. That's the way you install TypeScript on the command line, right? Notice how a lot of them install -g TypeScript. Notice how a lot of places are starting to use npm and Node as a way of getting, as a package manager from a command line perspective. It's kind of a mainstream way of doing things these days, right, for web applications, right? So it doesn't matter whether we're doing this or whether we're doing other things, this is what you want to do. All right, so you download and install TSD, right? And you download and install TypeScript, and now you have all your dependencies. Now we can do the command that I want to do, which is this. TSD install, right? And we want to install Jquery, right? So we're going to say Jquery. So we're going to get our type definition library for Jquery that works with TypeScript, --save, and press enter. What this does is it goes out to the world, connects, gets Jquery, the type definition library for Jquery, and installs it in a file called typings. Now this is the beautiful thing, right, when it does this, right? Let me show you this one, and then we'll take a break. So my wife will kill me. It installed the typings folder, right, with Jquery in there. So here's my jquery.d.ts file, plus, and this is the beautiful thing that you're going to love, this tsd.d.ts file that keeps track of all the references. Right? So all my references that we had before in TypeScript, it keeps track of. Now that I've got that going on, let's add one more. So we'll do that one more time just from a demonstration purposes. So I'll clear that. So I'll say again, the command is tsd install, right? And then we mentioned the library, so it's Bootstrap. Let's say I want to do the Bootstrap library, and then --save. And what that does is it hits up our folder. Now if you notice, it installs it right inside the reference. See how that did that? Right inside my references file. And on top of that, this is another really cool thing. Under tsd.json, which is way down at the bottom here, it installs something very similar to Bower, where it keeps track of, from a dependencies perspective of what version of the type definition libraries and which commit from GitHub that it's looking at. So now you're only pointing at that commit. So there won't be a breaking change in your type definition library if you were to download this from GitHub. This is really cool, right? So that's a really cool thing. From a workflow perspective, this is a good thing to do, right? Now let's take a look at our game.ts file as an example. Here's our game.ts file. And I want to put together an IFI, right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard what an IFI is, but basically it's a self-executing anonymous function, right? And it looks something like this. So I'm going to say this, right? And we're going to say function, this, and then this. All right? And I'm just going to go one of these. So it looks like this. So you have the opening parentheses, and I know she's looking at me, Lilia's looking at me, she goes, I hate this type notation already, right? There's different ways of doing this, by the way. But this is called an IFI, right? I-F-F-E, right? And what we want to do is it's a self-executing function. So instead of us calling the function on body load. So we go body on load is equal to init. We do that for our type definition, our TypeScript. We don't have to do that anymore. As long as we include our game.js file into our code, right, then it'll automatically notice that this is going to execute. Whatever's inside the body between this header, which is function, and the bottom, right, whatever's in between these lines, it will automatically execute. Right, so we don't have to worry about calling a function or whatever, right? So that's really cool. I like that. I'm going to save that. And now let's do a couple things. We need to add this to our index.html like normal. So if you notice, here's our JavaScript libraries, and then I want to add my library in there. So I'm going to say script, start typing in, source is equal to scripts, right? And then by the name of my file, which is game, and I'm not going to use TS, I'm going to do game.js, and then kind of the closing script tag, right? So what this does is it creates this link to our game. So these are our game scripts, right? There it is. And inside our game scripts, and then what it is it's now it's a link to that file, right? Okay, that's the first thing we need to do. So now we're going to go back to that file, and I want to see if I can access Jquery. And this is how we're going to do it. Remember, Jquery is the $, right? So $, an open bracket, and if I put document, there it is, I get code hinting. I'm good, .ready, right? There it is. So I'm getting all the Jquery hinting. So TypeScript is active. Now, the better way to do this, instead of doing this, is to create a class. So forget the ify. Let's get rid of this ify for a second. Right, here we go. Let's make a class. Actually, let's do it inside the ify. Hold on, just undo. So make a class inside the ify. We're going to call this the person class, just like we did before. And the person class is going to have one property, which is going to be the name of the person, which is going to be a string. And we're going to make, on the constructor, we're going to just say something like kind of a hello world. So console.log, right? We'll say hello, and then plus the name of the person, this .name, right? Hello, whatever the person's name is. And of course, we want to get that name in here, right? So we do something like this, name, which is also a string, right? That's what we normally do, right? And we want to say something like this, this.name is equal to name, right? There's a faster way to do this, by the way. We'll show you later. So I've got that, and so when I call the constructor, it loads, it kind of stores the name of the person in the name file, and the name property, and then I kind of, as soon as I call the constructor, it shows me console.log. Okay, cool. Let's kick off we're going to say var. We'll kick off an object of the person file. We'll call Tom, or your name, right? So var Tom is equal to a new person, right? As an example, and we're going to put in the name of the person. That's me. And as soon as I do that, it's going to kick off my own name. Now here's the thing: we're running in TypeScript, and I need to compile. So remember, it's Control-Shift-B on the Windows, and Control or Command-Shift-B on the Mac. So I'm Command-Shift-B, and if everything goes well, I've got these files that just showed up. The JavaScript file. This is the JavaScript equivalent, right? And if you notice, there's the ify, and there's the other one that TypeScript generated for us, right? And it also has my map, which is really important. This, map is something that browsers are looking for these days, especially from an SEO perspective. Okay, so I've got everything good. I've linked it up. Now I should be able to run this thing, no problem. Sometimes what we need is a little server to run this thing in, and I want to have a little server. I don't want to build a Node.js server. That's too much. So you can download another module, npm install -g this time, something called HTTP server, right? So let's download that, npm install -g HTTP server. And when you get that, you can do one of these. Inside your folder, you can just do one of these, HTTP-server, and press enter. And now I'm serving my files up on 8080. Okay, so it's a quick way of doing it without having npm or node installed, a node server, and I'm going to go there. So I'm going to say localhost, and we'll say 8080, and press enter. Now let's check and see if I've done this right. Inspect element, and if I go to my console, then it should say hello Tom. Now, one thing I got is that localhost css bootstrap.min.css, it says failed to load resources. The server responded with a 404. If I refresh, that goes away, right? Like before. But we see that there's a problem with our css bootstrap.min.css file that's somewhere inside of our folders because we don't have this file. We never got the bootstrap.min.css file, right? We never got it. We just downloaded CSS. But this hello Tom worked, right? And I didn't do any kind of body on load method whatsoever, right? Let's pause it there so I can answer the call, and then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll do the actual demo, and I'll give you assignment 3, which is what I'm looking for, what I'm looking to give you today.